All right, it's time for Chapter 7 of Radiating Literature. Should I do that each time? Change the number up? Let me know. So, to start, this chapter is called The Mysterious Madame Dubril. I am not saying that's actually how you pronounce her name. I'm just saying I'm going to stick with that's how I pronounce her name. So I don't keep trying each time. It's just Dubril. Okay. The Mysterious Madame Dubril. As we retraced our steps to the house, Bex excused himself for leaving us, explaining that he must immediately acquaint the examining magistrate with the fact of Gerard's arrival. Gerard himself had been obviously delighted when Poirot declared that he had seen all he wanted. The last thing we observed as we left the spot was Gerard crawling about on all fours, with a thoroughness in his search that I could not but admire. Poirot guessed my thoughts, for as soon as we were alone he remarked ironically, "At least you have seen the detective you admire, the human foxhound. Is that not so, my friend?" "At any rate he's doing something," I said, with asperity. "If there's anything to find, he'll find it. Now you—" "Ah, bien! I have found something. A piece of lead piping." "Nonsense, Poirot. You know very well that's got nothing to do with it. I meant little things, traces that may lead us infallibly to the murderers. Mon ami, a clue of 2 feet long is every bit as valuable as one measuring 2 millimeters. But it is the romantic idea that all important clues must be infinitesimal. As to the piece of lead piping having nothing to do with the crime, you say that because Gerard told you so. No. As I was about to interpose a question, we will say no more. Leave Gerard to his search and me to my ideas. The case seems straightforward enough, and yet, mon ami, I am not satisfied! ! And do you know why? Because of the wristwatch that is 2 hours fast. And then there are several curious little points that do not seem to fit in. For instance, if the object of the murderers was revenge, why did they not stab Renaud in his sleep and have done with it? They wanted the secret, I reminded him. Poirot brushed a speck of dust from his sleeve with a dissatisfied air. Well, where is this secret? Presumably some distance away, since they wish him to dress himself. Yet he is found murdered close at hand, almost within earshot of the house. Then again, it is pure chance that a weapon such as the dagger should be lying about casually, ready to hand. He paused, frowning, and then went on. Why did the servants hear nothing? Were they drugged? Was there an accomplice, and did that accomplice see to it that the front door should remain open? I wonder if— He stopped abruptly. We had reached the drive in the front house. Suddenly he turned to me. My friend, I am about to surprise you, to please you. Wink. I have taken your reproaches to heart. We will examine some footprints. Where? In the right-hand bed yonder. Bex says that there are footmarks of the gardener. Let us see if that is so. See, he approaches with his wheelbarrow. Yeah, see, again, exactly why you should have examined it already. Not, I have time to do it later. You don't know, he could have already tramped all over the place. Indeed, an elderly man was just crossing the drive with a barrow full of seedlings. Poirot called to him, and he set down the barrow and came hobbling towards us. If you are going to ask him for one of his boots to compare with the footprints? I asked breathlessly. My faith in Poirot revived a little. Since he said the footprints in the right-hand bed were important, presumably they were. Exactly, said Poirot. But won't you think it's very odd? He will not think about it at all. Are you suggesting that he's that dumb, or are you just going to steal one? We could say no more, for the old man had joined us. You want me for something, monsieur? Yes, you've been gardener here for a long time, haven't you? 24 years, monsieur. Does the gardener know that a dude was murdered here? Or is he just like, I don't think he lives at the house. I think he just like shows up every day at this time to take care of stuff. You all should like tell him. And tell him who you are, because you're just like a rando at this house. 24 years, monsieur. And your name is Auguste, monsieur. I was admiring these magnificent geraniums. They are truly superb. They have been planted long? Some time, monsieur. But of course, to keep the beds looking smart, one must keep bedding out a few new plants and remove those that are over, besides keeping the old blooms well picked off. You put in some new plants yesterday, didn't you? Those in the middle here and in the other bed also? Monsieur has a sharp eye. It takes always a day or so for them to pick up? Yes, I put 10 new plants in each bed last night. As Monsieur doubtless knows, one should not put in plants when the sun is hot. Auguste was charmed with Poirot's entrance, and was quite inclined to be garrulous. I don't know, I assume that means talkative. That is a splendid specimen there, said Poirot, pointing. Might I perhaps have a cutting of it? But certainly, monsieur. The old fellow stepped into the bed and carefully took a slip from the plant Poirot had admired. It does say a slip, not a snip. Okay. Poirot was profuse in his thanks, and Auguste departed with his barrow. You see, said Poirot with a smile, as he bent over the bed to examine the indentation of the gardener's hobnailed boot. It is quite simple. I did not realize that the foot would be inside the boot. You did not use your excellent mental capacity sufficiently. Well, what of the footmark? I examined the bed carefully. I don't know. Of course, the foot would be inside the boot. I don't know what that whole thing meant. Okay, but I examined the bed carefully. All the footmarks in the bed were made by the same boot, I said at length after a careful study. You think so? Eh bien, I agree with you, said Poirot. He seemed quite uninterested, and though we were thinking of something else. At any rate, I remarked, you will have one less bee in your bonnet now. Mon Dieu, what an idiom! What does it mean? What I meant was that now you will give up your interest in these footmarks. But to my surprise, Poirot shook his head. No, no, mon ami. At last I'm on the right track. I am still in the dark, but, as I hinted just now to Bex, these footmarks are the most important and interesting thing in this case. That poor Gerard, I should not be surprised if he took no notice of them whatever. At that moment the front door opened, and Hotet and the commissary came down the steps. Ah, Poirot, we were coming to look for you, said the magistrate. It is getting late, but I wish to pay a visit to Madame de Bril. Without doubt she will be very much upset by Renaud's death, and we may be fortunate enough to get a clue from her. The secret that he did not confide with his wife. It is possible that he may have told it to the woman whose love had him enslaved. Do we know that was the thing, and they weren't just, romancing each other? I'm trying not to swear. I'm really trying. We know where our Samsons are weak, don't we? I admired the picturesqueness of Hotet's language. Also, I know it's not Hotet. That's just what I'm saying. I suspected that the examining magistrate was by now thoroughly enjoying his part in the mysterious drama. Is Gerard not going to accompany us? Asked Poirot. Gerard has shown clearly that he prefers to conduct the case in his own way, said Hotet dryly. One could see easily that Gerard's cavalier treatment of the examining magistrate had not prejudiced the latter in his favor. We said no more, but fell into line. Poirot walked with the examining magistrate and the commissary, and I followed a few paces behind. There is no doubt that Francois's story is substantially correct, he remarked to me in a confidential tone. I have been telephoning headquarters. It seems that 3 times in the last 6 weeks, that is to say, since the arrival of Renaud at Merlinville, Madame de Bril has paid a large sum in notes into her banking account. Altogether, the sum totals 200,000 francs. Dear me, I said, considering. That must be something like 4,000 pounds. 200,000 francs is only 4,000 pounds? Okay, whatever. Precisely. Yes, there can be no doubt that he was absolutely infatuated. Yeah, I mean, definitely he could have just been, paying her off for something related to the secret now, could he? Okay. But it remains to be seen whether he confided his secret to her. The examining magistrate is hopeful, but I hardly share his views. During this conversation, we were walking down the lane toward the fork in the road, where our car had halted earlier in the afternoon, and in another moment I realized that the Villa Marguerite, the home of the mysterious Madame de Bril, was the same house from which the beautiful girl had emerged. She has lived here for many years, said the commissary, nodding his head toward the house, very quietly, very unobtrusively. She seems to have no friends or relations other than the acquaintances she has made in Merlinville. She never refers to the past, nor to her husband. Why do you think she's married? One does not know if he is alive or dead. There is mystery about her, you comprehend. I nodded, my interest growing. And the daughter, I mentioned? A truly beautiful young girl, modest, devout, all that she should be. Maybe Renaud's her dad. Anyways, one pities her. For though she may know nothing of the part, a man who wants to ask her hand in marriage must necessarily inform himself, and then the commissary shrugged his shoulders cynically. But it would not be her fault, I cried with rising indignation. No, but what will you? A man is particular about his wife's antecedents. I feel like, though, if she's pretty enough, there's someone who won't care. Anyways. I was prevented from further argument by our arrival at the door. Hotet rang the bell. A few minutes elapsed, and then we heard a footfall within, and the door was opened. On the threshold stood my young goddess of that afternoon. Cool. When she saw us, the color left her cheeks, leaving her deathly white, and her eyes widened with apprehension. There was no doubt about it. She was afraid. Mademoiselle de Brille, said Hotet, sweeping off his hat. We regret infinitely to disturb you, but the exigencies of the law, you comprehend? My compliments to Madame your mother, and she will have the goodness to grant me a few moments' interview. For a moment the girl stood motionless. Yeah, you phrased that super weird, guy. Her left hand was pressed to her side, as though in the sudden, unconquerable agitation of her heart. But she mastered herself and said in a low voice, I will go and see. Please come inside. I assume it meant low in that way, not like, I will go and see, please come inside. Oh, that would be pretty funny. She entered a room on the left of the hall, and we heard the low murmur of her voice, and then another voice, much the same timbre, but with a slightly harder inflection behind its mellow roundness, said, But certainly, ask them to enter. In another moment we were face to face with mysterious Madame de Brille. She was not nearly so tall as her daughter, and the rounded curves of her figure had all the grace of full maturity. Her hair, again unlike her daughter's, was dark, and parted in the middle in the Madonna style. Her eyes, half hidden by the drooping lids, were blue. There was a dimple in the round chin, and the half-parted lips seemed always to hover in the verge of a mysterious smile. There was something almost exaggeratedly feminine about her, at once yielding and seductive. Though very well preserved, she was certainly no longer young. Sorry, just like referring to well preserved feels so harsh. But her charm was of the quality which is independent of age. Suddenly there, in her black dress with the fresh white collar and cuffs, her hands clasped together, she looked subtly appealing and helpless. You wish to see me, monsieur? She asked. Yes, madame. Hotet cleared his throat. I am investigating the death of Renaud. You have heard of it, no doubt. She bowed her head without speaking. Her expression did not change. We came to ask whether you can throw any light upon the circumstances surrounding it. I? The surprise of her tone was excellent. I guess that means you think she's lying? Anyways. Yes, madame. It would perhaps be better if we could speak to you alone. He looked meaningfully in the direction of the girl. Madame de Brille turned to her. Marthe, dear. I'm guessing that's how you say it. It's Martha, but with an E at the end instead of an A. But the girl shook her head. No, maman. I will not go. I am not a child. I am 22. I shall not go. Madame de Brille turned back to the examining magistrate. You see, monsieur, I should prefer not to speak before Mademoiselle de Brille. As for my daughter says, she is not a child. For a moment the magistrate hesitated, baffled. Very well, madame, he said at last. Have it your way. We have reason to believe that you were in the habit of visiting the dead man in his villa in the evenings. Is that so? The color rose in the lady's pale cheeks, but she replied quietly, except there's an exclamation mark, so, I deny your right to ask me such a question. That is my attempt to quietly exclaim. Madame, we are investigating murder. Well, what of it? I had nothing to do with the murder. Madame, we did not say that for a moment. But you knew the dead man well. Did he ever confide in you as to any danger that threatened him? Never. Did he mention his life in Santiago and any enemies he may have had there? No. Then you can give us no help at all. I fear not. I really do not see why you should come to me. Cannot his wife tell you what you want to know? Her voice held a slender inflection of irony. Madame Renaud has told us all she can. Ah, said Madame de Brille, I wonder. You wonder what, madame? You cut her off. Like, it's hard to cut myself off, but it's like, I wonder, and then looks like an M dash, could be an N dash, hard to tell. And then it says, you wonder what, madame? So she started to say it, and then you cut her off, and now she'll just say, nothing. The examining magistrate looked at her. He was aware that he was fighting a duel, and that he had no mean antagonist. You persist in your statement that Renaud confided nothing in you. Why should you think it likely that he should confide in me? Because, madame, said Hotet with calculated brutality, a man tells to his mistress what he does not tell to his wife. Ah! She sprang forward, her eyes flashed fire. Monsieur, you insult me, and before my daughter. You chose for that to be before your daughter. I can tell you nothing. Have the goodness to leave my house. The honors undoubtedly rested with the lady. We left the Villa Marguerite like a shamefaced pack of schoolboys. The magistrate muttered angry ejaculations. Guys, we have to stop with this. To himself. Poirot seemed lost in thought. Suddenly he came out of his reverie with a start, and inquired of Hotet if there was a good hotel near at hand. There is a small place, Hotel de Bain, again, that's my best guess at pronunciation, on this side of town, a few 100 yards down the road. It will be handy for your investigations. We shall see you in the morning, then, I presume? Yes, I thank you, Mr. Hotet. With mutual civilities we parted company, Poirot and I going towards Merlinville, and the others returning to the Villa Genevieve. The police system is very marvelous. The French police system is very marvelous, said Poirot, looking after them. The information they possess about everyone's life, down to the most commonplace detail, is extraordinary. Though he has only been here a little over 6 weeks, they are perfectly well acquainted with Renaud's taste and pursuits, and at a moment's notice they can produce information as to Madame de Brill's banking account and the sums that have lately been paid in. Undoubtedly, the dossier is a great institution. I think that's what how dossier is said and spelled. It's a great institution. But what is that? He turned sharply. A figure was running hatless down the road after us. It was Marthe de Brille. I beg your pardon, she cried breathlessly as she reached us. I should not do this, I know. You must not tell my mother. But is it true what people say, that Renaud called a detective before he died, and that you are he? Yes, mademoiselle, said Poirot gently. It is quite true. But how did you learn it? Francois told our Amélie, said Marthe with a blush. Poirot made a grimace. The secrecy. It is impossible in an affair of this kind. Not that it matters. Well, mademoiselle, what is it you want to know? The girl hesitated. She seemed longing, yet fearing, to speak. At last, almost a whisper, she asked, Is anyone suspected? Poirot eyed her keenly. Then he replied evasively. Suspicion is in the air at present, mademoiselle. Yes, I know, but anyone in particular? Why do you want to know? The girl seemed frightened by the question. All at once, Poirot's words about her earlier in the day recurred to me. The girl with the anxious eyes. Renaud was always very kind to me, she replied at last. It is natural that I should be interested. I see, said Poirot. Well, mademoiselle, suspicion at present is hovering around 2 persons. 2? I could have sworn there was a note of surprise and relief in her voice. The names are unknown, but they are presumed to be Chileans from Santiago. And now, mademoiselle, you see what comes of being young and beautiful. I have betrayed professional secrets for you. The girl laughed merrily, and then, rather shyly, she thanked him. I must run back now. Mamma will miss me. And she turned and ran back to the house, looking like a modern Atalanta. I stared after her. Mon ami, said Poirot in a gentle, ironical voice. Is it that we are also to remain planted here all night, just because you have seen a beautiful young woman and your head is in a whirl? I laughed and apologized. But she is beautiful, Poirot. Anyone might be excused for being bowled over by her. Poirot groaned. Mon Dieu! But it is that you have the susceptible heart. Poirot, I said, do you remember after the Styles case when you were in love with 2 charming women at once and neither of them were for you? Yes, I remember. Weird, because you 2 are clearly in love. Anyways. You console me by saying that perhaps someday we should hunt together again, and that then, hunt together, gross, and that then, bien? Well, we are hunting together again, and I paused and laughed rather self-consciously, and to my surprise, Poirot shook his head earnestly. Ah, mon ami, do not set your heart on Marthe de Brille. She is not for you. That one, take it from Papa Poirot. Okay, that's so weird. Why? I cried. The commissary assured me that she was as good as she is beautiful. A perfect angel. You're so much older than her, though, bro. Some of the greatest criminals I have known had the faces of angels, remarked Poirot cheerfully. A malformation of the gray cells may coincide quite easily with the face of a Madonna. Poirot! I replied, horrified. You cannot mean that you suspect an innocent child like this. Ta, do not excite yourself. I have not said that I suspected her. But you must admit that her anxiety to know about the case is somewhat unusual. For once I see further than you do, I said. Her anxiety is not for herself, but for her mother. My friend, said Poirot, as usual, you see nothing at all. Madame de Brille is very well able to look after herself without her daughter worrying about her. That doesn't mean that her daughter's not going to worry, though. Anyways, I admit I was teasing you just now, but all the same I repeat what I said before. Do not set your heart on the girl. She is not for you. I, Hercule Poirot, know it. Sacre! If only I could remember where I had seen that face. What face? I asked, surprised. The daughter's? No, the mother's. Noting my surprise, he nodded emphatically. But yes, it is as I tell you. It was a long time ago when I was still with the police in Belgium. I have never actually seen the woman, but I have seen her picture, and in connection with some case I rather fancy. Yes, I may be mistaken, but I rather fancy that it was a murder case. Dun dun dun. End of chapter 7.